In the early hours of January 22nd, an armed man broke into Bruce's home, shooting him once in the foot and once in each leg.
The other one went in here and came out back in here.
Okay, so hopefully I have your attention now. I saw this video a few days ago, and I knew I had to do some sort of a reaction video to it. And I thought, this could be a cautionary tale of what happens when you leave your self-defense and your personal well-being completely up to the government, and you basically just go through life relying on luck for, I guess, your protection. So I know for some I'll probably be preaching to the choir, but for some people maybe I can change your mind a little bit or get you thinking in the right direction. So we're just gonna get right into the footage, and I'll stop it as we go and give my reaction.
They say a dog is a man's best friend. But when Bruce Wallers needed him most, his Jack Russell Terrier Zeus was also his most fierce protector.
Zeus kept coming closer, and he finally got close enough to me where he was right beside me and he was hanging on.
In the early hours of January 22nd, an armed man broke into Bruce's home, shooting him once in the foot and once in each leg.
The other one went in here and came out back in here.
Zeus was shot in the head. But despite his injuries, the dog never left Bruce's side, more concerned with his injured owner.
So I actually kind of find that hard to watch. It does make me get a little bit emotional. And, it appears that, unfortunately in the video, it doesn't actually give a very good description of exactly what happened. We know that happened early this year. It said January 22nd. He didn't say anything about trying to defend himself. He didn't say exactly what happened, other than the guy broke in and I guess decided to shoot him. And I guess the guy didn't want to kill him, but he wanted to disable him, I suppose. So the guy shot him in both legs and his foot. And it looks like his dog got in the way, or got in between them, and the guy also shot the dog at least once. We'll maybe analyze that a little bit more as the video goes on.
The love, the comfort, knowing that, like the sacrifice that he was willing to give for me.
The pair are at home recovering, Zeus now adapting to life, having lost an eye and half his jaw. But despite the terrifying home invasion, the Wallers family isn't leaning into the fear, instead focusing on the community that stepped up for their family.
The one text, one phone call created this snowball effect of compassion and love.
With mounting vet bills, Laura started a GoFundMe to make sure Bruce's best friend would be there when he was discharged from the hospital. The response was more than the family could have hoped for.
It was overwhelming. Within the first day, the GoFundMe was, I believe it was at like 9,000 or 8,000.
And it's that generosity Bruce and Laura hope to carry on, honoring the community, first responders and vets, who all let in a glimmer of light during their family's darkest moments.
It's a good thing that the community stepped up in this case, and they are helping them with their vet bills. But, you just have to feel really sorry for both him and the dog. It looks like that dog is, obviously lost the one eye and is probably going to have other problems for the rest of his life. And to me, this whole thing is preventable. I'll talk more about it when we're through the entire clip. But I just can't help but think, I've been preaching here quite a few videos about, not having the, the type of bail reform that Trudeau brought in, that's basically letting criminals out almost the same day, even when they commit violent offenses. It makes me wonder, what led up to this crime? Does this guy have a history of violent crime, and this is just culminating in this sort of thing? How many chances did the government have to lock this guy away before it's getting to the point where he's breaking into people's homes and shooting people? So we'll finish the clip, and then I'll kind of give my final thoughts on everything here.
The only horrible point of it was the clicking of the gun. If that had never happened, all of this beautiful stuff might not have been triggered.
Police are investigating. Megan Cobb, Global News.
So we saw there that the guy is thankful that, his dog showed him that much love, and the community came together and helped him. And I do appreciate that type of attitude, but I just think that this was something that was preventable. And obviously, as I've been preaching, I mean, we need to have tougher sentencing. We cannot have these, no money, get out on bail the same day type policies. We have to be keeping these guys behind bars. These are violent offenders, and they leave this trail of victimization as they go. In terms of what maybe him or his family could have done, I mean, obviously, taking their own self-defense seriously could have prevented this. I talked the other day about even just kind of hardening your entry doors and things like that. I'm going to maybe do a video. I've seen some products that may be pretty good for hardening entry doors, and they're not super intrusive and noticeable when you're not using them, like during the day or whatever. But there's something that you could apply at night to keep your house more secure. I had also mentioned like windows, like if you have ground floor windows or basement windows that could be easily broken into, you're going to want to think about those. Could you put bars on some of the windows? You can get like, it would be like a film that you put on the glass of the windows that prevents them from shattering, and would, basically at least slow somebody down significantly that's trying to break in through a window. There's also, I've heard of things like, if you have a window that's maybe like 3-4 feet off the ground, you could plant like rose bushes or something below the window, so that anybody that's trying to get entry into your home would basically have to crawl through thorns to like gain access to that window, which would probably deter them from like to begin with. So, there's things like that. If you actually think your own personal defense, especially in your own home, through, there's a lot of clever things that you can do that don't end up making your house look like a fortress to everybody else. But another consideration would be like, if you are living in a high crime area, you may want to move. I mean, you can tell from, some of the videos that I put out that I do live, out of town. One of the big reasons to get out of the city for myself and my family was to get away from this type of garbage. A lot of these cities, a lot of these neighborhoods, they're just not safe anymore. And I've noticed in a lot of the home invasion videos, especially the ones out of Ontario, I've noticed that they seem to be targeting a lot of these higher end homes. They're looking for cars that are, like $100,000 plus vehicles. They're trying to get the keys. That's why they break into the homes. Obviously in these nicer neighborhoods with, houses that are over $1 million, there's a lot of other valuables that are worth stealing. And so it's not just like gang on gang violence anymore. It's not just like low income areas that seem to be the target of these criminals. They seem to be targeting a lot of people who, years ago weren't really the victims of this sort of crime. The police in Canada do not actually have a duty to protect you. I don't know if a lot of you actually knew that. It's semi new to me. I've heard that before, but I'm still doing some research on it. But I pretty much have confirmed that, basically a lot of people think that the police at least have a duty to try to protect you. And as far as I know, here in Canada, they do not. So even if you are, let's say that you are being targeted or could potentially be targeted, the police do not have a duty to make sure that you are safe. So that's, you have to take that responsibility onto yourself and protect yourself and your family. Going along with the, let the criminals do what they want. I mean, sometimes it might turn out to be okay, but a lot of times it just ends up like this. We need to have reform for our self-defense laws here in Canada. If you use a weapon to defend yourself, especially if you're doing it intentionally, the way that the criminal code is written, it becomes like a prohibited weapon and you can be charged with that. So in a lot of cases, people are afraid to defend themselves because they're worried about, even if they don't get charged with like murder or aggravated assault or something like that, or assault with a weapon, they're worried about getting charged with having the weapon for that purpose. And so they don't try to defend themselves. And I've heard from a lot of lefties, or even I've heard like police talk about this, like, oh, just let your you know, just let the criminal have what they want and they'll probably leave you alone. And it's like, well, what did this guy do? Right? Like, I don't think that it doesn't, I doubt that the guy gave him a chance to comply. It sounds like the guy just shot him. Right? I mean, even just the way the guy talks, he doesn't sound like the type of guy who actually tried to do much. Or if he did, maybe he was, you know, completely unarmed and the guy just shot him in the legs so that he wouldn't be a problem. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm just speculating, but I mean, clearly the guy had no actual chance to defend himself in that scenario. Thinking that you can comply your way out of trouble is not necessarily going to work. And in this case, both the man and the dog were extremely fortunate that things turned out the way they did. This guy, he could have been another statistic. We could have been hearing a news story about, you know, if the guy would have chose to shot him in the torso instead of the legs. We could have heard about a home invasion where someone was killed and the dog was killed. We could have, you know, if those bullets hit his legs in different spots, they could have hit an artery and the guy could have bled out before, you know, emergency services could arrive. So, you know, it's kind of a good news story. Like I said, it still really upset me to know that happened to that guy and his dog. And they're just very fortunate that things turned out the way they did. Anyways, hopefully that maybe for some people that'll see this, maybe it'll wake you up. But there's whole lot of things you can do, even if you're not a gun, like into guns or self-defense. There's a whole lot of things you can do to at least slow down criminals from getting into your house and give you time to call the police and maybe find a safer, more fortified place in your home. I guess I also didn't mention, you know, the potential of setting up some sort of a safe room area or something, but that's also a potential option. Anyways, I'm going to end it there. Until next time, take care, guys.